Alright, so boom. The story kicks off at this work dinner where everyone's celebrating Team 1 for totally crushing it. This one coworker is super hyped that Miss Nari finally showed up. But he's all like, yo, why aren't you drinking? She hits him with the I gotta bounce back to the office to grind. And then some other dude literally points a spoon at her. He's clearly wasted and goes, I get you're on that promotion hustle, but you gotta vibe with the team, acting all disappointed in her. He keeps going on about how you gotta work hard, play hard. You know that whole deal. Then he turns to the guy at the end of the table like, am I right? But that dude could not care less about what's happening. He just gives a maybe and says he's not really invested. Nari's thinking what a total tool this guy is, but before she can say anything, her phone starts blowing up. It's her aunt. Again. She steps outside and answers, and her aunt is immediately on her case like, why didn't you pick up, you know who's calling, so answer. Nari tries to explain she was at a dinner and says she's sorry. Her aunt just keeps yelling like, a dinner aren't you supposed to be working, so that's your excuse. You're lucky I'm letting it slide this time. So when are you sending that money I asked for? Nari's getting super annoyed and tells her she's broke and it'll take her a minute to save up those $2,000. But that apparently doesn't matter because her aunt keeps being a total Karen on the phone, saying that even though Nari's her niece, she was the one who raised her like her own kid after her mom bounced, and Nari should know how tough that was. So basically it's a debt Nari has to pay for like the rest of her life. And she just keeps going off while Nari's staring at the sky, wishing a meteor would just hit and end it all. Nari's wondering why she's even grinding so hard when her life is still this lame. While she's trying to deal with her aunt and walk, she accidentally smacks right into someone. Her phone goes flying and shatters on the ground, all while her aunt is still yapping nonsense. The guy steadies her so she doesn't eat pavement, but he's not exactly friendly about it. Nari looks up and sees it's her boss from the dinner and she's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. But he just dusts off his coat where she bumped him and says her phone was ancient anyway, so she can just use this as an excuse to get a new one. As he walks away, Nari is just shook. Like, how can you be that rude? She kinda clocks a black car parked close by, but she's in a rush to get back to the office, so she ignores it. When she gets to her desk, she's still fuming about her boss telling her to just buy a new phone. Yeah, right, if he wants that to happen, he can cough up the cash. He probably has zero clue that people like her have to drag themselves back to the office in the middle of the night, just to hustle overtime for money, hoping for a bonus, or even better, a promotion. And get this, he's younger than Nari, but he's already some loaded CEO. She thinks about all the times he's dissed her work, and is like, little does he know it's the desperate people with no other choice like her who go the hardest. She boots up her computer to start working, taking a deep breath and thinking about why the whole world has to be about money. And what's even more frustrating is that she's totally stuck at this job. Nari hears a noise and spins around to see what's up. Just as she's about to ask if someone's there, a hand comes out of nowhere and clamps over her face. He's got her face locked down, threatening her to shut up if she wants to live. Just do what I say. Nari is completely frozen. What is even happening? Is that a real piece? The guy keeps at it, saying that if she makes a peep, he'll pull the trigger and she doesn't want to get deleted, right? He shoves a photo at her and demands she spill everything she knows about the guy and what their deal is. But when she sees the pic, it's a photoshopped shot of her bumping into the boss. That is so not what happened. She can't even figure out how the dude faked a picture to make it look like he was being all sweet and helping her up. She's bawling, pleading for her life, saying she has no idea what he wants, and that this has to be a huge misunderstanding. After all, she knows literally nothing about her boss. The guy jams the heater in her face, obviously ticked that he's getting nowhere. But before he can finish his threat, a loud bang echoes through the office. Someone just blasted him in the hand. Nari is in total shock with no idea where the shot came from, if she's the one who's been hit or whose blood this is. The gun hits the floor, and a voice from across the room says, you want to know more about me? Then you should have just asked me yourself. Why are you bothering someone who's clueless? In that moment, Nari sees the person who shot the guy's hand was none other than her boss, Han Jin. Everyone is just frozen solid. He looks over at Nari and just says, you're a mess. The poor girl doesn't even know what to say with all this chaos, and she's still got blood on her. The bad guy shakes it off, grabs the gun with his other hand, and aims it at the boss. But before he can even make a move, the boss pops him in the leg and he goes down hard. As Jin strolls over to the guy, he just says that hunters are a total drag and asks, so what was it you wanted to know about me? As Nari watches the scene, she thinks to herself, what does he mean, hunters? What is he talking about? Who is this guy? Why is he armed? The boss lunges at the man beating him. Without stopping the beating, he asks what the guy wants to know about him, looking like a lunatic as blood flies everywhere. Nari thinks this is a great chance to get out of there as soon as possible. So she crouches down and starts to sneak away. But just before she can reach the door, someone calls out to her. Her crazy boss says she can't leave after seeing all of this. She looks back in desperation, thinking her life is over. The guy, unconscious and bloodied on the floor, tries to say something. The boss turns to him again, asking what he said, adding that the time for questions is over. At that moment, the guy stabs a syringe into the boss's leg. He manages to pull it out, but it's already too late. The effect of the substance starts to take hold, and he becomes dizzy while the man on the floor mutters to himself, saying, he did it! He did what he was told! Then he bites down on a capsule that was apparently in his mouth and says that since he has done his part, it's now time for his daughter to be saved. The boss gets up, staggering. He heads toward the protagonist, who is huddled in a corner, trying to use her phone to call the police. But before she can, her boss approaches and grabs her hand, startling her. Sweating, he warns her that if she tells anyone, he will hunt her down and kill her. Before he can finish his sentence, he collapses onto Nari's shoulder. Not knowing what to do, especially after being threatened, Nari decides to take him to her home. She gets tired because he is apparently very heavy. She questions whether she's doing the right thing, especially after he threatened to kill her. Remembering everything that happened at the office, she believes that deep down he was somehow trying to protect her. Suddenly, he starts to feel a tremendous pain, and he gets up, turning his back as he starts to bark and tremble. Nari doesn't quite understand if he's in pain or what is happening, but she asks if he wants her to get him some medicine. He ignores her, and unable to resist any longer, a large poof fills the air along with a cloud of smoke. As Nari stares in disbelief, she simply sees a small dog in the spot where her boss had been. She wonders what is happening. How can this be a dog? Where did this dog come from? As she approaches the small dog, she asks where Mr. Jin could be. The dog growls as she tries to calm it down. After all, she doesn't understand the situation herself. But the dog lunges at her and bites her on the neck. At that moment, a bright light fills the room, and another cloud of smoke appears quickly. When the protagonist opens her eyes to see what has happened, she is met by the sight of her boss on top of her, completely naked and with his mouth covered in blood. The two of them are in shock over what just happened. Jean notices the mark on her neck and grabs her arm. Nari asks what's going on. She has no idea what happened. As he licks the remaining blood from his mouth, she asks if he really turned into a dog. He lets go of her hand, puts on his clothes, and without saying or explaining anything, he simply leaves, leaving the poor girl sitting on the floor completely clueless. The next morning, Nari went to work as if nothing had happened. She stands in front of the office door, thinking that maybe she was a little crazy for going to work after everything that happened yesterday. However, she wouldn't get paid if she skipped work without giving notice. While looking at the office, she thinks that someone died there last night. At that moment, her friend touches her hand, making her scream in fear. He apologizes for scaring her, but he didn't understand why she was standing frozen in front of the door and was just about to say, "Excuse me." She enters, trying to ignore everything that happened and everything she's thinking. After all, it's just a normal office with employees going about their daily work, everything as it always was, without a single drop of blood anywhere. She wonders if maybe it was all just a nightmare. One of the employees says he's going to buy coffee for everyone and tells them to let him know what they want. He approaches Nari and asks if she wants some caffeine today. Before she can answer, someone slams a hand on her desk. It's her boss, saying that Miss Nari will be handling a matter outside the office with him today. Everyone falls silent. After all, he's the boss, and he just tells her to get a move on. She's afraid, and seeing her hesitate, he approaches and tells her to be quiet and come with him. If she doesn't, things will get ugly. The two of them leave, with her practically dragging her feet in fear. The other employees wonder why the boss chose her to handle an off-site matter with him. Could she be getting a promotion? One of them is even envious. In the elevator, Nari is sure he's going to finish her off. After all, she saw everything that happened yesterday. That strange man that syringed him, turning into a dog. As she's thinking this, a loud noise comes from the elevator. It starts to shake, and then rapidly begins to descend. She's sure it's the boss is doing that. This is probably it. Afraid, she crouches down and begs him to please not kill her. She promises she won't tell anyone what happened last night. She'll take everything she saw to her grave, so she begs him to please spare her. However, the elevator suddenly stops, and the elevator voice says, "You have arrived at basement level 9. The boss, seeing the whole pathetic scene, just tells her to get up and follow him. Still totally wigging out, she follows him. It never even crossed her mind that some secret lair was chilling under the office. She can tell it's like freezing down there. Jin is like, "Quit gawking and take a seat." Super sketched out, she asks why he dragged her down here when she already promised she'd zip it and basically memory wipe yesterday, which is the whole reason she didn't dial 911 just like he asked. She adds that she's feeling mega dizzy right now. He's all, "You're getting it twisted." Then the elevator dings, and she's pretty sure this is either her big break or she's totally toast. The assistant manager and June from her squad step out. For a hot second, she thinks she's saved and starts tearing up, begging for help. She bolts toward them, pleading for them to help her, saying Mr. June is threatening to unalive her. June just shoves her, yeeting her into the chair. Meanwhile, the assistant manager gives Mr. June the lowdown that they handled last night's whole situation. Giving Nari the side eye, he says there's just one loose end left. That poof and smoke thing happens again, but this time a legit wolf pops out and lunges at Miss Nari. Realizing this ain't a dog but a full-on wolf, it clicks that the assistant manager and her coworker can go beast mode too. She's worked with these people for over 11 months. To think they were all in on this together, able to turn into animals, is just wild. She asks the wolf what the deal is with this company. Is it a real company or just their secret clubhouse to hide from society? Last night, things were going off in the office. People were getting taken out and others were morphing into animals. Meanwhile, the other employees are just typing away like it's a normal Tuesday. Totally clueless about what's going down. Is this for real, she keeps asking herself? A woman pops out of another room saying, "Yeah, no, it's not normal, but welcome to the world, I guess." For some people, this world is super weird, while for others, it's just their normal. The wolf turns around and calls this person honey. Totally stoked, the wolf trots over to her, and she tells them to let the girl bounce. After all, this isn't a jail. As the wolf morphs back into a human, she introduces herself as Honey. And just like these three, she's a shapeshifter too. Extending her hand to our girl, Honey welcomes her to the Shapeshifter research squad. Nari's like, what exactly is a shapeshifter? And the woman replies that she probably saw it yesterday, how her boss managed to turn into a dog and then back into a person. And just now how Sam went full wolf mode. Everyone here can do that. And you're probably wondering if it's just them. But nope, there are like 10,000 people who can do this in Seoul. And that number jumps to 50,000 in all of Korea. Worldwide, we're talking about 7 million. Even with this number of shifters living in society, everyone's on the down low AV. Nari questions why they're spilling all this tea to her. Like, isn't it a secret? The woman replies that it's precisely because she saw the whole crazy show yesterday and now there's no going back. Our girl tries to say she's not interested in anyone's secrets, that she's already busy enough just trying to adult and get paid. Meanwhile, she gets up thinking she has to bounce from this place like yesterday. Walking backwards, she keeps saying she can keep this secret for life, but then she slams right into someone. And when she looks back, it's her boss, Jin. He's like, "You're not looking so hot." But she's actually freaking out because she spots a piece in his pocket and is sure she needs to dip stat. She quickly manages to snatch his piece and points it at them, telling them to let her walk. Because she wants zero part of this shapeshifter business or any other story they're trying to sell. She just wants out. Jin gives the sub-manager a look to stay out of it. Meanwhile, Nari's still there saying she just wants to leave, claiming she's just a regular 9-to-5er. He then takes her hand, noticing she's shaking. Pointing the gat at his own face, he tells her to pull the trigger. Obviously, this just makes her even more nervous and shake harder. He just tells her to chill and presses his finger over hers on the trigger. She squeezes her eyes shut, afraid a shot's gonna go off. But the thing just clicks and nada happens. He takes the piece from her hand and asks what kind of action movie marathon she's been on to not know that guns have a safety. You gotta switch off. But he gives her props, says it was a nice try. Realizing she's pretty much out of options, she just decides to go with their flow. In a room by herself, she waits for them to come back, having no clue what's gonna happen. Sam shows up with a coffee for her, which low-key makes her a little emotional. He then says he'll let her bounce, but first she needs to sign a paper, whipping out an NDA. Super happy, she snatches the paper from his hand and signs it without a second thought. She hands the paper back and he's like, "Whoa, didn't think you'd sign that so fast." But for the drama, he then asks if he can threaten her a little, just to play his part. Hopping on a chair, he orders her to sign the paper immediately, all while she's screaming that she already signed it, fearing for her life. Leaving the room with her coffee, she's just completely drained. And as she heads back to the elevator, she's thinking that she had no idea Sam was so extra. And what was even on that paper? Was it a blank sheet or was there actual stuff written on it? Because she totally didn't read it and just signed. Before she hits the elevator button, she ends up eavesdropping on a conversation. So she's like hiding behind a pillar and totally overhears Hani talking to Jin about some wild imprint he has with Nari. Then Jin gets this super serious look and says he'll do whatever it takes to make it, as if that whole connection never even happened. Hani's like, "Whoa, you're gonna reverse it how? Because to break an imprint, one of the two has to, check out. Either him or Nari." Hearing this, Nari totally loses it and trips over her own feet like a classic movie scene. She faceplants right in front of them, spilling the coffee she hadn't even sipped. She's freaking out that they know she heard everything, and she's scared they are gonna actually get rid of her for real this time. Jin walks up to her on the floor all like, "For someone who swore she'd just live her life pretending she saw nothing, you sure seem to love being front and center for all the drama. You really want that normal life, huh?" Hani puts a hand on Jin's shoulder and is like, "Dude, that's enough. Nari needs to get the full story like ASAP." So she explains that on that asterisk night, Jin and our girl basically ended up marking each other. Imprinting is this whole ritual shapeshifters do to lock in a bond with their ride or die. Apparently their hormones totally chill out once they find their person. Shuddering at where this is going, Nari asks if it's like getting married and Hani is just like, "Nah, not even close. It's a ritual you can only do once in your entire life." Normally, shapeshifters do this with the person they're crazy in love with because it completely flips both of their lives forever. In other words, it's a bond that's way more intense than marriage. Hearing this, Nari just bolts for the elevator. She starts mashing the button like her life depends on it, trying to get the heck out of there. She's thinking, what do you mean something more important than marriage? And why is calling an elevator so freaking hard, as she's just standing there and nothing's happening? While she's having a full-on meltdown, the assistant manager asks if it's cool to just let her leave. The boss just says they can always take care of her if she starts talking. Hani tells them not to sweat it. After all, she's gonna come back. Now that she and Jin have an imprint, being apart causes some seriously gnarly side effects. Her coworkers, seeing she's already back from her meeting with the boss, are all hyped and want to know all the tea and what went down. But she just slumps in her chair, puts on a weak smile, and stares at her screen, wondering if any of this is actually real. No matter how she spins it in her head, it sounds totally insane. It was supposed to be just another boring day at the office, and luckily she was slammed with work from the second she sat down till it was time to peace out. So she didn't really have time to overthink it. The whole thing felt more like a messed up dream, something totally not real that was over, and now she was back to her regular grind. But like the universe wanted to prove it wasn't a dream, she started seeing things. For example, a coworker was eating a cookie and Nari was like, wait, is she a shapeshifter too? Maybe a hamster. Another guy was literally sleeping inside a locker, and she's questioning if he's secretly a bear. Maybe the department head is an eagle. As she's going up the stairs, trying to do her job, she's thinking how bonkers it is that there are just animals hanging out here cosplaying as humans. And she remembers her boss was a dog, but he was more like a puppy and honestly kinda cute. She gets totally startled when her boss calls her name out of nowhere, and she notices his human form has a completely different vibe that is not cute at all. Looking super annoyed, he asks why she doesn't just go ahead and tell the entire office who the shapeshifters are. Nari's like, I can't help it. This is my first time finding this stuff out, so it's a little hard to act normal. He asks if she's felt anything weird during the day, like if her body's been acting up or anything. For a second, she has no clue why he's asking that until she remembers what Hani said about the bond they made, and it clicks that he might actually be worried about her because of it. Totally nervous that this is for real. She kinda pushes him and says, I'm fine, telling him to get out of her way. He looks ticked off but stays quiet as she nervously rushes down the stairs. Back at her desk, she can't figure out what's freaking her out more. The fact that there are all these secret shapeshifters in the company she had no clue about, or the fact that her boss is now like worried about her. Her coworker, seeing all this go down, asks if she's really okay because she's been acting super weird today. Nari just says everything's fine. It's just that a ton has happened, and she's still trying to process it all. Leaning into her coworker, she decides to ask a pretty bold question what he would do if he found out people could turn into animals. But before she can even finish her sentence, the assistant manager walks by giving her a major death glare while holding up the agreement she signed. At that moment, she is 100% certain he's a meerkat. Seeing that his coworker is having a rough one, the guy decides to try and help her out. When he looks up info about humans turning into animals, he remembers an author named Jun, who always writes about that kind of stuff in his novels. Thinking she might be a fan of his, he decides to pass the project on to her. A few days later, Nari realizes she just can't focus on work thinking about everything that's happened, and seeing that her colleagues are literally animals. In the meeting room, one of her managers says she hopes they can nail everything they promised for this week without any drama. She then hits Nari up like, yo, how's that interview prep with Jun coming along? And our girl is totally lost, like, what interview? I'm drawing a complete blank here. This totally wigs the manager out because the interview's literally tomorrow. Nari's still trying to say there's been a mix-up, but the manager is not having it and tells her to get it all done today for approval before she bounces. Her coworker, who's basically bawling while eavesdropping, gives Nari a hug and says he's so sorry. He says he totally spaced on telling her he added it to the project because she made that random comment about people turning into animals. He just assumed she was a stan of the author, so he put her on it. But then whoops, completely forgot to give her the heads up. Realizing she's kind of stuck, she's like, all right, is there at least a bonus in it for me? So the next day, she's getting her stuff together for the interview, thinking about how her coworker is always pulling these oopsie moves. She's low-key annoyed by it all, but then remembers he mentioned a major incentive for the project that everyone was dying for. That was literally the only reason she agreed to this whole disaster. This Jun guy is some genius author who blew up super fast. He usually keeps his whole life on the down low, like his name and what he looks like. The fact that he's so mysterious and writes these crazy suspense novels is what made him a bestseller. As she's trying to figure out what kind of dude he is and how she's gonna finesse this book deal, she realizes her arm has been super itchy lately. Then this total hottie walks up and is like, it's awesome to meet you. He introduces himself as Jun and asks if she's Nari. She's shook to see he's a cat person and can barely squeak out a yes. After the initial shock wears off, she gives him her business card, introducing herself as Nari and thanking him for the coffee. On top of being a total snack, he seems pretty chill, telling her not to sweat it since nobody even knows his face. He says he's used to making the first move. He brings up the proposal she sent over, says he vibed with it, and asks if she wrote it all herself, and she's like, yep. He says he was seriously impressed with her take where she said she could feel this angry vibe in his writing. Like he was trying to bottle up where all that rage was coming from, and that the feeling of relief when a case gets solved is just like the freedom you get from finally squashing that anger. But for real, while he was talking, all she could focus on was how gorgeous his hands and voice were. He's like, it's the first time anyone's given him a take that wasn't basic, using words like anger, hate, desire, and freedom. Nari can't tell if he's complimenting her or throwing shade, so she just explains she wrote down her raw thoughts from reading his stuff and wasn't trying to drag him or anything. It's just that she could feel all those emotions jumping off the page. She even says maybe she was just projecting her own feelings. When he just stays silent, she starts backpedaling, saying sorry, and that maybe she crossed a line. She tacks on that maybe. It's not just her, and that other readers probably feel that same weird vibe too. Before she can even finish, he just cuts her off and says, I'm in. He'll work with her on the next book. But before he can say more, she's like, my bad, and says she'll hit him up later cause something super weird is happening to her body. Sam walks in, sensing that the vibe is off, and asks if this is that adverse defect thing they talk about. He explains the assistant manager already took off to find her, but June's like, nah, that's not good enough, I gotta go find her myself. Sam's like, bro, you're really gonna leave the office looking like that? And the second they walk out, everyone just loses their minds over how cute the puppy Sam's holding is. Seeing his boss is basically helpless, he starts messing with him, asking if anyone wants to pet the little guy. Meanwhile, Nari is freaking out about the fur popping up on her arm and tries to cover it with her hands. She keeps getting up to check it out, wondering if it's legit dog fur. June, who's totally clueless about what's going on, asks if she's good. Nari says she's fine, just feeling a little off, but like nothing crazy until another puff of dog fur just sprouts out. He sees she's getting twitchy, stands up and offers to take her to the hospital. She's like, nah, I'm good. She's just dealing with some stuff she can't really get into right now. Then it clicks the dog fur is probably connected to her boss. Before she can even make a move, June gets up and drapes his coat over her, which is kinda sus since he supposedly didn't see the fur sprouting from her chest, but whatever. June just says she looks cold and that they should probably just call it a day on the interview so she can go see a doctor ASAP. He also tells her not to stress about the coat since she can just give it back the next time they link up. She says bye, apologizing like crazy, and bolts while he just watches her go with this look like he totally knows what's up. Sam's hauling butt with Jun in his arms, and the puppy is so ticked off because Sam totally trolled him by letting a bunch of people pet him. The assistant manager hits up Sam saying he was tailing her, but she gave him the slip when she took off running. Right then she bursts through the office door. Dude, what a train wreck. Her coworker asks how the meeting went, but she just ignores him and is like, where's the boss? Totally wrapped in the coat, she's on a mad hunt for him all over the office. Meanwhile, he's literally right behind her, freaking out and trying to find her until they finally bump into each other in the hallway. And poof, just like that, he's back to being a dude and yikes, totally in his birthday suit. Down in the basement, Hani's just vibing to some music, sipping her coffee when these two burst in, screaming their heads off, asking what is even happening and why they're feeling so weird. She then breaks it down for them, explaining that imprinting is like a super big deal for a shapeshifter because it's meant to chill out their hormones and stop them from poofing. Anytime a shapeshifter gets all up in their feels, they accidentally turn into an animal without even realizing it. And because of that, it'd be like impossible to keep that on the down low, which is exactly why imprinting is clutch. It helps them control the whole switch up and stay human. Plus, there's one major catch to get a perfect imprint. And that catch, the two of them have to be like actually in love. They're totally shook by this info because they obviously failed that test big time, so now they're stuck with this janky imperfect bond. Hani's like, low-key, maybe this is a good thing, because you literally can't undo a perfect bond. Nari starts spiraling like how is she supposed to live her life with dog fur sprouting out of her? Meanwhile, our girl's thinking if she can't ditch this bond, maybe she can at least hack the side effects. She figures maybe the glitches are happening because of where they are, like how far apart they are, or maybe because their hearts were pounding from all that running. All of a sudden, she whips around like, I have a theory. Maybe their bodies have developed this, like, major case of separation anxiety. This news obviously has them both tweaking with no clue how to fix it. So Hani decides it's time to run some experiments. The first test is to put them about 5 meters apart and boom, the weird side effects start kicking in instantly. So they figure out the two of them have to stay in each other's personal space to stay human. Sam's like, your bodies are like codependent. Nari totally snaps at him, telling him to stop making it sound even cringier than it is. Hani says that until they can figure out how to debug the side effects, they're gonna have to stick within 5 meters of each other, no exceptions. Then she drops the bomb that the only empty room at the research center is, you guessed it, right next to Jim's room, which makes things super awkward. He's just like, well, guess there's no other way. Then he gets up and says he probably needed to clean that room out anyway. A little while later, and somehow our girl ends up moving into the research center for a bit. And yeah, in the room next to Jim's, Nari didn't exactly say no to the offer, because I mean, saving money on rent is a total win. But she knows this can't be her forever home. The room she was in, even though it was in the basement with zero sunlight, somehow had this like really lively vibe. She winds up finding a picture. Looked like a pic of Jim with some other person. But before she could get a good look, he just materializes and snatches the photo from her, saying he must have left it there by accident. And she's like, maybe knock next time. Jim gets all serious and tells Nari that he swears he's gonna find a way to fix this whole mess like ASAP. That way she can just pretend this whole nightmare never happened and go back to her normal life. Before she can even say anything, he just dips. Nari realizes she's never seen that look on Jim's face before, and she wonders if maybe whoever used to have this room has something to do with it. Then she gets a text from June saying he hopes whatever happened wasn't a big deal, and that he'll catch her at the next interview. Thinking about June, she knows she only got into this project for the cash and cause her coworker messed up, but he actually seems like a genuinely good dude. She ends up passing out super fast while her aunt is blowing up her phone again. The next day, they're heading to work. And Nari's thinking at least the one upside is she doesn't have to deal with the subway or any other public transit to get to work. Jim gives her a heads up that if she doesn't want to turn into a giant fluff ball in the middle of the office, she better keep him updated on her every move. When they get to their office floor, there's some major drama going down. Nari walks over and is like, what's the tea? And everyone just gets dead silent and looks super awkward. until one of her co-workers spills that some lady who says she's Nari's aunt is making a huge scene outside. Nari bolts to see what's going on, and when she gets out there, she sees her aunt totally going off on the security guard yelling that her niece works there so they can't just kick her out. The second she spots Nari, she's like, "Why weren't you answering your phone? You made me come all the way down here." Nari's like, "This is where I work, you can't just show up and cause a scene." But her aunt could not care less, just holds out her hand and demands the money, that $2,000 she was talking about. Her aunt's like, "If you'd just given me the cash earlier, I wouldn't have had to come here." Our girl is trying so hard not to break down and cry in front of her aunt, especially at her job, and just wondering what she even means to this woman. Her aunt gets pissed and starts trashing Nari, calling her ungrateful. But before she can really get going, someone shows up asking if it's just $2,000. Jim asks the lady if that'll cover it. Nari is mortified, like, "Mr. Jim, what are you doing?" And her aunt, hearing this, does a complete 180 and starts acting like the sweetest person on the planet, saying Nari is always gushing about the dude who owns her company. As she's yanking Nari along, her aunt mentions that she might not be the happiest chick on the planet, but that she hopes the boss will look out for her. While her aunt keeps dropping these backhanded compliments, basically just trashing her, saying she's not a looker and is super shy, Jim seems totally unbothered as he scribbles on a form until a comment makes his ears perk up. The aunt straight up says she's glad Nari didn't get her mom's trash-tasting dudes. Totally ticked off. Our girl can only thank how lame and humiliating it is that she's just used to feeling this helpless. Jim caps his pen and hands the form over to the woman, who's obviously gushing with thanks, saying it's way more than enough. But before he lets go of the paper, he decides to drop a bomb, saying Nari has a seriously beautiful face, even though he's kind of fumbling his words. This leaves everyone totally shook. He throws his arm around Nari's shoulder and says since her aunt made his cutie pie feel awkward, he's asking her to please not show her face at the office ever again. He just turns his back on the two totally insufferable people and says if they're done, they gotta get back to the grind. Inside the office, Nari's like, what was that all about? But Jim just says she needs to ditch that crusty old phone and her number too. For real? Why is she even putting up with people like that? Our girl thanks him for having her back but says it was something he really didn't need to get involved in. Even so, she promises to pay him back ASAP. In fact, those two are way more loaded than they look, and they just pull this stuff to mess with her. This comment gets Jim a little heated, and Nari keeps going, saying her family will just blow all the money he gave them on gambling. Jin says that if she hates it so much, she should just cuss them out, block their numbers, and call the cops if they keep bugging her. Upset and totally embarrassed by the whole thing, Nari claps back that he makes it all sound so simple. But what does he really know about her life? Just throwing cash at a problem to make it go away isn't an option for her. As she's crying, she says that maybe a couple grand is chump change to him. But for someone like her, it's not easy to just shake off a fear that's been building for years. Maybe even her whole life, and what he just did only made her feel even more pathetic. Turning around, she promises she'll pay him back no matter how long it takes. Jin is left standing there wondering if he actually helped or just made things a billion times worse, but he doesn't say a word. Later that night, some guy is walking down an alley when he suddenly hears something and whips around. Seeing nothing, he yawns and keeps going, but then someone straight up jumps him from above and stabs him in the neck with some kind of liquid. The dude hits the ground feeling this insane heat, and then what the heck horns start sprouting out of his head. As he looks at the attacker, all he can see is that their eyes are glowing yellow like a cat's. Back at the research center, Ronnie is complaining like how many more of these drugged-up shapeshifters are going to show up. The assistant manager says, "There have been 4 total, and the hunters probably hit a bunch of places at once." Ronnie's trying to figure out why they're being so aggressive with these drugs. The young guy, who's now the Moose, says he luckily managed to escape, while Ronnie tells him to shut up and save his energy. The Moose says he saw a shapeshifter. He's 100% sure the person who attacked him was a shapeshifter. In another spot, a black kitten strolls into a room reporting that the drugging mission was a success. But they failed to actually grab the targets. Someone sitting in a chair asks what it feels like to not only turn on your own kind, but to go so far as to completely crush them. The black cat morphs back into a human, saying it was no big deal. The next day at the office, while Nari's working, she remembers she hasn't hit up June since that day the first freaky side effect happened, so she then decides to finally text him back. But before she can finish typing, Jun pops up saying he's got a new meeting out of the office that she needs to tag along for. However, Nari is so not feeling it and just says she's swamped right now. Her boss leans in and whispers that Hani said it's urgent, but our girl isn't having it, warning him that what she's doing is urgent too. Seeing he can't talk her into it, Jin decides to try a different tactic. He just grabs her office chair and starts rolling her to the elevator while she's freaking out asking what he's doing. But before they left, she managed to shoot off the text to June, thanking him for the other day, and asking if he was free for her to return the coat, and he immediately replied that he's free literally any time. Once they get to the basement, Nari is still in the chair arguing with Jin because he wouldn't let her get up until now, using the excuse that she'd make a run for it. But when they get to the basement, Nari sees tons of humans who are half morphed into their animal forms, and they look like they're in really rough shape. She immediately jumps up and asks what the heck is going on. The 3 who've been taking care of all these people for days are totally exhausted, just sitting on the floor talking. The assistant manager explains it was a hunter attack, And according to the spy they planted, they're planning another attack tonight at midnight at a casino. The target is a lone wolf hyena shapeshifter on the night shift, and being solo makes her a total sit-and duck. So they've got zero time to waste and gotta cook up a plan to save her like now. Highs like to stop anyone else from getting got this time. They're gonna strike first and go all out. That means they need all hands on deck, and yeah, that includes John. And since our main character and him are a total package deal now, they gotta roll together. Honey asks if it's cool for Nari to tag along, but before Nari can even blink, Jin jumps in. He's like, "Whoa, I never signed up for this," and is seriously questioning why they gotta drag her into it. Honey explains it's not like she wants to throw Nari into the fire, but they need Jin, and so Nari's gotta come. Which, like, I don't totally get right. He's just a puppy for real. Anyway, she keeps going saying she gets why he's so against it, especially since she knows he can see asterisk at asterisk in Nari. But before she can even finish, Jin totally shuts her down, asking if anything else even matters to her. The vibe gets super tense between them, and poor Nari is just standing there, completely lost. I mean, for real, who are they even talking about? Honey apologizes and says she was just trying to get him on board. Nari decides to step in, saying she's totally cool with tagging along, especially since Jin has to be on this mission. She's like, she can totally just hang back and stay out of the way while they do their thing. They both just stare at her, not saying a word. But like, it seems like it's the only play. Later that night at the casino entrance, Sam's on lookout to make sure nobody else gets in. Meanwhile, the assistant manager is handing out the gear. Everyone's getting kitted out, getting ready to go. Even Nari gets a piece, though. She has legit no idea what to do with it. Jin even jokes that her form was so on point last time. He's like, she even had him fooled, acting like she knew how to shoot. He gets up behind her to show her the ropes with the weapon, and all she can think is, OMG, he's way too close. He fixes her grip and tells her that she always has to flip the safety off before she aims. Then he low-key whispers in her ear, not to forget it like last time. Inside the casino, the whole scene is totally normal. They're all undercover, blending in with the crowd. Or maybe they're just chilling until finally some dude walks in. He's this young guy with a mark on his face, and he walks right up and orders a whiskey from the bartender, who's the person they're supposed to be protecting tonight. The second the guy takes a sip of his drink, another dude rolls up, already pulling a mask over his face. He just yeets a green smoke bomb and pops off around into the ceiling, yelling for everyone to freeze. The assistant manager was totally blindsided and is freaking out like, what is even happening? As Jin feels his body getting weaker, he realizes he's about to black out, and then everyone just passes out cold in the middle of the casino. The masked dudes walk through, checking out all the bodies knocked out on the floor. One of them says everyone will wake up in an hour and won't remember a thing that went down. Their target is passed out on the bar, so... Before he can even make a move on the woman, a red chip rolls across the floor. The guy figures it just fell off the table by accident, and even starts bragging about how this is how he paid for his car. But then Sam grabs his hand, all like, actually, that's mine. The others are so ticked at Sam since they were all supposed to be playing possum, realizing the plan is totally going south. The hunters decide to just snatch the target and dip. But the second they touch the woman at the bar, she shoves a knife right into the dude's arm. She rips off her disguise, and surprise, it's not the hyena woman. It's Hanny, and she's yelling at Sam for not sticking to the plan. The other guy, who's still up, starts blasting and gets on his radio screaming for backup. But before he can even finish his call, he gets clipped in the ear by a bullet. Jin lays into Sam too, saying if he'd just followed the plan, this whole thing wouldn't be so jacked up. Jin tells the assistant manager the rest of the crew is probably outside. He's like, he can sense there's about 15 of them. Looks like they rolled deep with the whole gang, so they gotta get ready to bounce. Everyone's on the same page and they start heading for the exit. Jin vaults over the counter to where Nari is hiding, crouched down. He asks if she's okay, and she just nods, holding the gun in this super weird way. He holds out his hand and says it's time to go. As they're moving, the two guys' bodies are just lying there, and Jin tells her not to look. He parks her in an alley and tells her to wait there till he gets back. Also, he gives her this kind of random little pink teddy bear button and tells her if anything goes down, she needs to press it. And just like that, he takes off to find the others. Nari's thinking that he's being like almost asterisk too asterisk nice to her. It kind of reminds her of when she first joined the company and had no clue what she was doing, just getting in everyone's way. As she's thinking back on all the chaos inside, Nari wonders if those guys really got hauled off, until she hears a meow, and a cute little black kitten walks up to her. But we all know this kitten is low-key sus and not that cute. Nari tells the cat it shouldn't be out here. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew is already in position waiting on the hunters. The assistant manager gives them the heads up that they're over on the left. When Jin looks, he sees a whole bunch of them getting ready to rush them. Jin tells the team they're gonna hit them all at once. They're getting ready to throw down, but Sam's already gone full-on wolf mode. He bolts in first, totally blindsides one of the dudes, and just yeets him into the air. Meanwhile, the assistant manager is just straight up brawling in his human form. The other guys are kind of frozen because of the surprise attack, but Hanina, she's charging right in, still human. Jin's got her back, popping shots at the guys behind her. And then she hops in their ride. Jin's totally grossed out by some hunter's blood splattering on his face. The fight's still raging and Jin's getting worried because Nari is like dead silent in the alley where he stashed her. Sam traps one of the hunters right next to Jin, who immediately takes him out. Then one of the other hunters clocks that Jin's posted up in a real strategic spot, basically playing goalie. He's like, "Wait, is there something over there?" But before he can even make a move, the assistant manager swoops in and snags the gun right out of his hand. But at the same time, another dude apparently had the exact same idea and jumps Jin from behind. Jin manages to swerve the main hit, but the guy clocks him in the face right after figuring this is his shot to get past. The spot Jin was blocking, the dude makes a break for it. Jin sprints after him, totally freaked he's gonna hurt Nari. But plot twist, when he gets there, the corner's completely empty. He's just shook like Nari's gone. Right then, Hani comes flying in with the car screaming at Jin to move. She literally mows down the rest of the hunters before slamming the car into a pole. Hopping out of the wrecked car, she's like, "Where's Nari?" And Jin just says she vanished. Then a little rock hits the roof and gets their attention. They look up and it's that Shapeshifter girl. She takes off, pretty much daring them to follow. And Hani remembers what the moose said, that the hunter who jumped him was a shapeshifter. Sam figures they should totally go after her, but Hani's stressing about finding Nari. Without missing a beat, Jin leaps up to the roof and says the shifters got Nari's scent on her and it's close. Meanwhile, Nari's tied up in some warehouse, with her tracker smashed on the floor. She's still trying to process what just went down. It was all a blur and she didn't even get to hit the panic button. She's thinking maybe if she can get her hands free, she can reach the piece in her back pocket. But of course, some dude is watching her every move. He asks her what a regular human is doing rolling with a crew of shapeshifters. He even says that, for guys like them, it's not like they have a ton of options. They've got to feed their families, you know? But she looks way too young for this life. And that's when it clicks for our girl, these hunters are basically just mercs. They're getting paid to hunt and snatch shapeshifters. She calls him out like, "So you're putting food on the table by kidnapping and taking out other people?" That totally sets him off. He starts cussing her out, asking who the heck she thinks she is talking to him like that, especially after he was being nice. As he flicks the safety off his weapon, he tells Nari to soak it all in while she can. 'Cause once that jerk shows up, she's basically useless to them. After a bit of running, it starts pouring. Jin realizes that since he hasn't shifted yet, Nari's gotta be close, and that cat shifter could totally ditch him if she wanted. But it seems like she's doing this on purpose, baiting them to follow her. It's so obviously a trap, but right now, what else can he do? Back at the warehouse, the guy grabs some tape to shut Nari up, saying he's not gonna let his family starve just 'cause he's gotta do this work. Nari, who can't talk now, is getting super freaked out about how this is all gonna end. Just then, Jin finally finds her, and she's so relieved he's there to rescue her. The creep threatening her keeps his gun pointed at her, saying the monster finally showed up. He tells Jin to drop his weapon, pressing his piece right against Nari's head. Jin fakes like he's backing off, telling the guy to just chill. He says he doesn't want to hurt any random people caught in the crossfire. He puts his gun on the ground. He's watching to see if the dude will move the gun off Nari's head and asks what he wants to let her go. But then he gets this dizzy spell and has a flashback to another rainy night in some busted-up building. He tries to shake it off, and the guy says, "There's one thing they've always wanted, for you filthy shapeshifters to be taken out by our own hands and shown to the world like the garbage you are." The guy tells Jin. He shoves Nari's head toward the ground, saying she's just the bait to get him here so they can end him. Jin flashes back to another scene again, with a woman being held hostage. The woman is telling him to breathe and just hang on, begging him not to get any closer. While he's still kinda out of it, lost in the memory, he mutters out loud that he should have gone to her even when she told him no. The hunter realizes Jin is totally zoned out and isn't even hearing a word he's saying. Nari's still in danger. Sees Jin is acting super weird. In his head, Jin's back on that rainy night. Two guys are threatening the woman as she's telling him to stay back. The hunter, just to be a total jerk, jams the gun harder against Nari's head and tells her, "Looks like your boy doesn't even care if you live or die." She starts thinking she's got to figure out a plan B and fast. Nari tries to inch toward a piece of broken glass, but before she can grab it, the guy squeezes the trigger a little harder, saying it's game over for her. Right then, Jin, I'm not even sure if he, still kinda dazed, starts sprinting at the dude, and his brain is like glitching between now and the past. Then bam bam, two shots ring out and some drops start mixing with the rain. Jin, stuck in a flashback, was totally frozen watching it all go down. That woman was just lying on the ground, gone, while the rain mixed with his tears. And in that moment, this crazy rage just floods through him. But then a scream snaps him back to reality. He looks over and sees Nari, hands all bloody, holding a gun. She's looking at Jin, totally bugging out like, "I shot him." I mean, let's be real, that guy was a total waste of space. And poor Nari had to save her own skin. But okay, she just collapses like she can't even process what she did. And then everyone else comes running over, freaking out because they heard the gunshots. Hani immediately throws her coat over Nari, while Sam in wolf mode just launches at the guy on the ground. Jin can't even wrap his head around the fact that it all somehow worked out. And looking up, he sees the sun's coming up. Back in the basement, Ronnie asks Nari if she needs anything, telling her that her door is like always open, even in the middle of the night. She gives Nari a hug and says she's sorry for making our girl go through all this. But Nari's like, "It's not your fault. You didn't make me do anything. Besides, it's all in the past now." She said it all cool to Ronnie, but the reality was way different. She's in her room shaking, can't sleep, just replaying that whole scene on a loop in her head, thinking about the guy she shot and how she could even do that to someone. In her nightmare, she's panicking and trying to run, but someone grabs her arm, and it's that same dude telling her she did it and she'll never forget. Now her hands are covered in blood. She wakes up super scared, and sleep is just not happening anymore. She decides to grab a glass of water, hoping it'll help her forget everything. The assistant manager shows up in the kitchen and asks if she's having a rough night. Over in Jin's room, he's just staring at the photo of that other woman, remembering the night everything went down. The second he saw her lying there, he just couldn't believe it was actually happening. But he had to try with all his might to keep his cool and not transform in front of those guys. Obviously, that was a total fail. And poof, he turns into a puppy and bolts. Still messed up from all the memories, Ronnie cracks his door open to check if he's okay. She tells him that Nari is for real such a strong person. Even when he lost control and imprinted on her, she was braver than anybody. She only just found out about shapeshifters. And she still got over her fears and helped them on the mission. On top of that, she survived on her own. She asks if Jin doesn't think Nari is incredible too, pointing out that Nari and Hai, the woman from his past, are completely different people. She adds that it's time for Jin to get over the whole curse of his past, because let's face it, he and the team pretty much turned her world upside down. So that's why they have to help her get through this. Not because of old feelings, but because they feel guilty and responsible now. It seems like Jin finally got what Hai was trying to say. He leaves his room. He grabs a green album, comes back, and sits with it on the floor. Then he takes that photo out of the frame and finally puts it in the album, showing us that this is the scrapbook of all his memories with Hai, so it looks like he's finally letting go of his past. The assistant manager makes tea to help Nari sleep, and she asks if he drinks tea a lot, and he's like, nah. He says that staying calm and protecting her in that situation would have been hard even for a pro agent. Nari asks if he thinks she actually did the right thing. She says the guy shows up in her dreams, and no matter what the reason was, the fact is she shot someone and that doesn't just go away. He was probably a goner anyway, right? She asks the assistant manager. Sam decides to talk about his past before he started working with them. Back in the day, he was a straight-up gangster, beating people up and threatening them for money. He had a boss who totally egged him on. And no doubt about it, he was a real piece of work. Someone who didn't know right from wrong. Intimidating people and fighting were the only things he knew. At the time, he didn't get that there were other ways to use his strength. And even now, he can't even find the words to say how much he regrets what he did. Nari says that he must have had his reasons back then, but he's like, nobody becomes a gangster for a good reason. One of the things that's burned into his memory was this day he beat up a guy. And even on the ground, the man asked them if they thought they were even human. After all, the only thing those people wanted was to live a normal, decent life. So why was his crew doing all this? Because of what he said, Sam knew he couldn't be forgiven. Even when he had a chance to stop, he just kept pushing it away. His boss at the time was super grateful he was the strongest, and offered him a job for double the pay. Of course, he took it. His boss was at the door like, no need to be nervous. Just go in and find the guy. The second he walked in, the door slammed shut behind him. He desperately tried to open it, but no luck. Freaked out, he realizes they threw something. And when he looks, there's a huge net about to trap him. With not much he could do, he ends up falling into it. And right after that, a bunch of needles get yeeted his way. He tries to block, but they still nail him in the arm. And just like that, he starts feeling super messed up and totally faceplants. When bam, he poofs into a meerkat. Desperate to bounce, he chews through the net like a maniac and finally bolts. He finds a corner and just chills for a sec to get his head straight. And somehow shifts back to being a person. But instead of feeling played, he just felt like this was karma for all his past L's. You know, for messing up a ton of lives. Then totally out of the blue, some rando just pops up next to him like, yo, you a shapeshifter? He totally freaks and gets ready to throw down. But the guy's all, chill dude, I'm one too, we're good. Turns out it was Jin's dad, like the guy everyone knows. The head honcho of the Korean Shapeshifter Society, Mr. Ji-song. And yeah, that was their meet cute. Mr. Ji-song was like, bro, did you seriously not know this place is crawling with hunters? Nam's like he was totally clueless, just sent there to check some stuff out. Then Jin's dad drops the bomb that all those traps were his. And because of that, everything's triggered now and that needle was basically a party pooper. But sensing things were about to get real, he says he's gonna need his help. Mr. Ji-song checks out his rough hands and is like, I bet you know how to throw hands, and asks if it's all for survival. Then he gets straight to the game plan, explaining the mission is to get to the top floor, and since the power's out, it's Stairmageddon. Since the trap went off the second you walked in, the hunter's deaf knows someone's here, so we gotta book it. But even before they start the climb, Nam's like he can sense 4 people on the next floor, and 5 on every floor after that. He explains it's his special meerkat power, which Mr. Ji-song is super into, cause that's clutch. Meanwhile, some hunter is just vibing watching the sunset when he gets clocked on the back of the neck. Then plot twist, Nam is gassed and can't climb another step. And Mr. Ji-song roasts him like, aren't you a little young to be this winded? But then he's like, it's awesome having someone so on point with him. Since his spidey senses are so good, he probably uses that for everything. Nam admits he does, but then gets hit with flashbacks of all the messed up stuff he did with his powers. Before he can even spill, They hear a huge brawl kicking off upstairs. So they keep going, taking out every hunter that gets in their way. Nam's like, what's the big deal on the top floor that you'd roll up to a place like this solo? As he's eyeing the guard at the door, he just says, you're about to see. He sneaks up on the dude and takes him down easy. Then he starts working on the lock. But of course, backup shows up. Nam is on it, dropping one of them, but the other guy slips past and makes a beeline for Mr. Jisong with a bat. Before he can swing, Nam dives in and takes the hit with his arm. But dude hit so hard it smacked him in the head too and he starts bleeding. Even so, he shakes it off and lays the guy out. Mr. Jisong sees he can trust Nam to cover him and keeps working on the door. But two more goons pop out and try to light them up. Before they can get a shot off, Nam goes beast mode and takes them both out, basically running on fumes, right as Jisong finally gets the door open. He just collapses, totally dazed. And out of that locked room come a bunch of little shifter kids. As Nam starts to black out, he gets it. This was what they were trying to save, or really what Jisong was trying to save all along. A while later, he wakes up in a hospital room. Someone tosses a soda can at him. It's Mr. Jisong just hanging out. Nam has like a million questions, but the first thing he asks is why Mr. Jisong would risk it all in a place like that. Knowing it was packed with hunters, he just says it like it's no big deal. That he just knew Nam would have his back. And then kinda teasing him, Mr. Jisong asks Nam how it felt. I mean, he didn't just save him, he helped save those innocent kids the hunters had snatched. It was those tough hands of yours that made it happen. He slips a little piece of paper into Nam's hand and tells him that this is what being strong is really for. As he's walking out, he finishes his thought saying that protecting stuff is way better than just taking it. And for the first time, Nam actually stops and thinks, trying to get his priorities straight instead of just dodging what's right. He looks at the paper and sees it's Mr. Jisong's business card for his publishing company. Fast forward to now Nam, who's the assistant manager. Says sorry to Nari for the massive story dump, but he wanted her to hear exactly what the old boss told him. Then he bows to Nari and thanks her for being brave and strong enough to keep not just herself, but all of them, the shifters, safe. She gets kind of flustered, not knowing how to reply to him being so formal, and just says she's just glad she could help, figuring out that he was trying to make her feel less guilty. And she's like, okay, now I get why you told me all that. Switching gears, but not really? Nari asks what Jin's dad was like. Was he the one who started the whole publishing house? Nam says he was a guy with really broad shoulders. So broad you felt like you could never get lost if you were following him. Nari picks up on how the assistant manager keeps talking about Jin's dad in the past tense and asks if maybe he's passed away. Nam's like, yeah, Mr. Jong totally vanished last year. Then heading back to his room, he spots Jin just chilling in the hall and is like, dude, maybe you should talk to Nari too. Jin's just silent, so Nam calls him out. Isn't that why you're lurking out here in the middle of the night? But it's pretty obvious Jin is just beating himself up for not being able to save her, and says he totally doesn't deserve to face her. The next day, Jin's down in the basement trying to wrap his head around this whole cat-girl situation. Like, why would a shapeshifter ever team up with the hunters? He remembers she looked like she was around 20, so he starts digging through all the shapeshifter intel he's got, and boom, the system pulls up a perfect match. According to the file, on paper, she's been MIA since June. This gets him thinking, where are all these missing people ending up? He used to think they just got jumped by hunters, and that was the end of it. But what if some of them are actually working for the hunters? Then he glances at the pic of his dad who's been gone since October, and that whole theory just ticks him off. Meanwhile, upstairs in the office, one of Nari's coworkers is totally staring at her thinking she's in the zone and grinding hard again, which gets him all pumped, wishing he had her work ethic. But plot twist, she's totally knocked out. The manager spots her and jolts her awake, and right before she eats the floor, Jin swoops in, catches her, and covers for her, saying he's the one who made her work late last night. He also tells her to come to his office. Everyone else is just shook by how their whole vibe has flipped in just a few days. Some are even getting a little salty about it. In his office, Jin tells Nari he needs to ask her something, but one look at her, and he can tell she's not doing so hot, and she admits she barely slept last night. So he gets up, guides her over to the sofa, and drapes his coat over her. Heading back to his desk, he tells her to just crash for the rest of the shift, and promises he'll keep it on the down low with her manager. A little later, Sam barges into Jin's office without knocking like he always does. He spots Nari passed out on the couch, and Jin immediately shushes him. So Sam, being Sam, tries to take advantage of the situation and flops down on the sofa too. Jin's like, what are you even doing? But Sam just claims he's tired too. Before he can get comfy, the boss boots him out. After a serious power nap, Nari wakes up looking like a mess, totally confused about where she is. She asks Jin how long she was out. He's like, you must have been exhausted. I mean, you were even snoring. She starts freaking out and apologizing, but he just sits next to her, fixes her hair, and admits he was just messing with her, trying to kill the awkward vibe from yesterday. Jin adds that it looked like she was sleeping pretty well. Nari smiles and is like, yeah, for the first time in a while. Getting back on track, Jin tells her the real reason he wanted to see her. He asks her about yesterday, before she got snatched, if she ran into anyone besides the hunters. Nari tries to remember last night's mess, but draws a blank until Jin reminds her that animals count too. And then it clicks. She remembers a black cat came up to her in the alley. She even talked to it, but it just stared at her totally still and then poof, it was gone. Jin's sure it was their shapeshifter, but he can't figure out why she didn't just attack Nari. What's weirder is that she basically led them right to her. So Jin asks Nari if for some reason she'd ever seen that cat before. Meanwhile, back at Hunter HQ, the mystery boss in the chair is telling her she was way out of line, asking if she really thought he wouldn't find out. So yeah, he's totally chewing out the cat girl. Her mind flashes back to years ago when she was just vibing to some music and a truck almost turned her into a pancake. But right before she got isekai'd into another world, she managed to dodge it. The driver hopped out to see what happened, but was super confused when he found nothing. And in a nearby alley, a little injured kitten was shaking like a leaf. It started wandering around with its hurt little paw and got super jumpy when someone got close, and what do you know, it was Nari. As soon as she saw the poor thing, she got right on the phone with a vet, asking if she could bring in a cat that really needed its leg looked at like right now. The kitten was bleeding so much it just passed out. Back in the present, the girl looks nervous but doesn't say why she did it. The boss tells her it's cool if she doesn't want to talk since everyone's got their reasons. But he warns her not to forget why she signed up to do this in the first place. Anyway, back at the publisher, Nari says she doesn't remember ever seeing that kitten before. Handing Jin's coat back, she says that if there's nothing else, she's gonna get back to work. She thanks him for the coat and the nap, and then looking a little embarrassed, asks if she could maybe ask him for a favor. After he hears what it is, Jin's immediate answer is a hard no. Nari tries to explain that June is the author of like the most hyped book of the year. The expectations for this project are through the roof, and since she's the one in charge, shouldn't she be in the meetings with him? He points out that her needing to stay close to him isn't the only issue. Like, what if something goes down while she's there and she gets attacked? How's she supposed to explain that to June? He then suggests it might be better to just put someone else on the project since there's no real reason for her to stay on it anymore. Nari, not about to get booted from the project, was like, "Did you forget I went on a crazy dangerous mission for you?" And totally guilt-tripped him, saying she almost cashed in her chips. On that mission, and he can't even do this one tiny thing for her? Dude was totally cornered. So he had no choice but to tag along to her meeting with the author June. Then June's message pops up. Nari quickly explained June was about to show, and told her boss to make himself scarce. Jin got super salty, because she dragged him all the way there just to tell him to hide. She was like, the author's identity is on the down low, so he'd be sketched out seeing anyone but me here unannounced. Jin scans the place and snaps back that there's literally nowhere to hide. Nari just points at the bathroom door, right by the table. Jin, probably thinking his life is a joke, ends up in his new hideout, the bathroom. Total fail, obviously, because a bunch of people kept knocking, complaining he was taking forever. While he's stuck in there, Jin peeks at June's profile on his phone and gets this feeling that something is way off about the guy. Meanwhile, at the table, Nari gives the coat back to June, thanking him and saying she's glad to see he's doing better. She's trying to stay focused, even though she's totally distracted by how good-looking Jun is, and says she read the synopsis he sent for the new novel. She was super impressed that, unlike his other books, the main drama this time was all about romantic tension. She told him she was stoked to see something different since he usually doesn't write about love. Jun admitted that was true, saying he'd never even considered writing about it before, but he added he was a little intrigued now. "Oh, sweetie, why are you doing this to yourself?" "Sir, but we wanted to talk." "Nah, I bet he's the main villain. Total spitting image, right?" Seeing she still wasn't getting the hint, he just gives her a little smirk. Nari's wondering if he's actually flirting, or if she's just making it all up in her head. Trying to focus, she's like, how could a guy that hot possibly be into me? And decides to switch back to the novel. She says she's been dying to know why he's always had a human who turns into an animal in his stories right from the very beginning. And this new book has the same kind of deal. So is there a specific reason you write about that? He just smiles and asks if she's ever seen a person actually turn into an animal, because he says he has. But my guy is smooth, and he plays it off saying he meant it in a figurative way. Of course, Nari lets out a huge sigh of relief, because she was scared for a sec that he might also know about shapeshifters. He explains the whole figurative thing is about someone living a normal life, but who's secretly two-faced, all deceptive and possessive. Like a wild side they keep hidden from everyone. This totally makes her think of herself and maybe even what went down that night. But is hiding a part of who you are or trying to cover up your weak spots really that messed up? Nari tells June that, honestly, she's always been a little sketched out by the villains in his books, and how they're always desperately trying to bury their secrets. She just doesn't think keeping something to yourself is all that wrong. I mean, everyone's got a secret they don't want to share as long as that secret isn't hurting anybody. To her, the real villains are the ones who go and expose it. He glances at his watch and says he's got another appointment, so he has to dip. Nari's cool with it and says her goodbyes. But right before he leaves, he drops a case on the floor and tells Nari that in this world there are secrets that can totally hurt other people. He bends down to grab the case he dropped and gives it back to her. June says he really dug their chat today, and that they can link up again at the next meeting. He also points to her lips and says that shade looks really good on her, which makes the poor girl blush like crazy. From the bathroom, Jin watches the entire cringy scene unfold. Realizing this meeting was about more than just work, he's wondering if that guy is actually her type. As Jin walks toward Nari, he passes by June and feels this totally weird sensation. But when he looks back, June's already gone. Nari asks if they're heading straight back to the office. Agreeing with her, Jin starts thinking, no way, it can't be. That guy is the same scumbag he knows. Outside, June mutters to himself that Jin hasn't changed a bit. In the car back to the company, the vibe is super tense. Jin, who saw the whole thing, and Nari, who's all shy from being flirted with. Unable to bite his tongue, he's like, so now I see why you were so bent on having this meeting. She pretends she has no clue what he's talking about. But he tells her to just look at herself in the mirror and see what she looks like right now since her cheeks and ears are totally red. When he glances over to make a comment about her lips, he gets all red-faced himself, saying her lips look like a freaking tomato. Super annoyed, Nari asks what business it is of his if her face or lips are red. He says it's got nothing to do with him for real, but he just wanted to say that the lipstick she chose today is just not it for her. That was not the reaction he was expecting, because it actually made her pretty upset. She wipes the lipstick off with her shirt, and when she looks at him with it all smeared, she asks if he's happy now before storming off angrily back to the office. He realizes he totally messed up. Wiping her smudged lipstick, Nari is just irritated with herself for getting all hyped over something so stupid. So when she gets back to the office, her coworker's trying to ask how the meeting went, but Nari totally cuts her off like, wait, random question, do you wear lipstick? Then she just hands the lipstick over. Dude, it was a lipstick, not the case. Her coworker was like, whoa, that thing's huge, and says she only rocked it once, but it wasn't her vibe, and if she's not gonna wear it, she can just toss it. Peeping that she's kinda bummed. Her coworker decides to just drop it. Nari says bye to Lee, but as she's leaving, some creepy shadow rolls up behind her coworker. When she spins around, she's face to face with Mr. Jin, who asks if she's like tight with Nari. The second Nari gets to her room, her phone starts blowing up. She looks, and it's a text from her coworker, saying Mr. Jin basically grilled her about Nari asking what she's into. Her coworker says she's freaked and has no clue what's even happening. Nari figures he's probably feeling guilty about what he said, and is trying to get her to say they're cool, which just ticks her off more because he's not actually sorry, he's just trying to clear his own conscience since she's not playing his game. The second he gets to the basement, he spots Nari in the kitchen and with this super fake smile says he saw she bounced early, which makes her even more salty, and she totally ghosts him. At dinner, everyone's hanging out, eating and chatting like normal, except for Jim, who has no idea how to get back on Nari's good side. He decides to shoot his shot and asks if they can talk later. Of course, she shuts him down hard, saying she's slammed and everyone just keeps on eating. Being nosy, he asks what exactly she's so busy with, which makes her basically yeet a piece of egg at his face. And with a total death glare, she asks what gives him the right to ask that. Ronnie can totally feel the drama between them. Later, still not taking the hint, Jim is posted up outside Nari's bedroom door. He knocks, she tells him to come in. And inside, she's there with the assistant manager and Sam chilling with some books. Nari's like, we're in the middle of book club. So he says he'll circle back. Again. He knocks on the door again, and this time she's sparring with Ronnie. She tells him she's mid-workout and can't talk right now. And again, he says he'll come back later. Ronnie starts dying on the floor laughing, saying she has never in her life seen Jim act so whipped. It's absolutely hilarious. After she's done cracking up, she tells Nari maybe it's time to stop ducking the guy. After her shower, Nari walks out of the bathroom and runs smack into Jim waiting for her. He asks if they can finally talk now, and she can't believe he was literally camping outside her door while she showered. Nari's like, what could possibly be so important? He says he wants to apologize because he never meant to hurt her feelings. It's just that she seemed kinda off and it threw him a little, which leaves Nari totally shook and blushing. It honestly felt more like a confession. Jim says that whole thing about the lipstick not being her color was a total lie. Then he quickly turns away, saying it's getting late and she should get some sleep because he doesn't want her yawning and spacing out at work tomorrow. But like, you could totally see his neck was beet red. Back in her room, Nari's just like, what even was that? Could Lee have made him apologize or something? But when she checks the text, Lee said she basically told him, I don't know, and bolted. So probably nobody forced him to say any of that. The next day at the office, everyone is freaking out over something on a computer, which turns out to be a kitten in a Santa outfit. Nari realizes Christmas is right around the corner and she usually just spends it alone, telling herself it's just another day. But looking at Jim, she thinks maybe this year will be different. What's she getting at? She means she's gonna spend it hanging with the whole Shapeshifter squad. Yeah, right. When she catches herself wanting this stuff, she asks herself if she's secretly thirsty or something. Later down in the basement, Hani says she's got good news and bad news. The good news is she finally found where they're cooking up that stuff they use to attack shapeshifters, but the bad news is that a massive amount of the ingredients is being shipped there, probably because they're making a ridiculous amount of it. The effect it has probably depends on the dose, but they know the stuff forces the change from animal back to human. Whoever is behind this probably thinks it's easier to snatch shapeshifters in their animal form unless they're like a huge species. But why the heck are they trying to kidnap shapeshifters, Hai wonders? Maybe to out them to the world or just add them to some creepy collection. She's stressing about what's about to go down. Jim grabs a pen, tracing the truck's route on the map. He says that's gonna be their ambush spot. Since they have no clue what the enemy's endgame is, it's probably best to just shut this plan down ASAP. Jim says they'll make their move tomorrow night at 11:30. He asks Nari if she's cool with that. She says yeah, and that she's gonna step up her game this time. Kinda awkwardly. Nari says she also just wishes everyone would stay safe. Like it would be awesome if they could just worry about normal stuff instead of always having to deal with this drama just because they're shapeshifters. She adds that she wants to stick with them through all of it, so if she can help in any way. But Jim cuts her off saying he thinks she's getting the wrong idea. There he goes, ruining the moment again. Basically telling her she doesn't belong since she's not one of them. He's like he appreciates her help, but as soon as they figure out how to break this bond, she's going right back to her normal life. Which just makes the whole room super awkward again. Like the guy has zero chill. The next night, Nari is watching them plot and starts thinking that maybe she just read the whole situation wrong. I mean, to them, she's just some random outsider who has nothing to do with their business. She remembers what Jim said, that once everything is handled, she'll be going back to her regular life. And she thinks that maybe she was just desperate to belong somewhere. And because of that, she ended up playing herself. Jim then notices that she's acting kinda sus for some reason. Gee, I wonder why, right? Anyway, that's the tea, y'all. What did you think of this new series? I'm personally so obsessed with it. I think it has some fire potential. If you guys are really feeling it, I promise I'll drop more. I wanted to take a sec and vent a little. I've seen some salty comments saying I never post continuations and only do new series, but the channel is still new, and it takes me about 3 to 4 days to make a single video. It takes forever to find a new series for you. So if it totally flops and gets low views, there's no way I can do a part 2. But I am grinding on a part 2 for a series you all loved recently, and I'm dropping it next week. I hope you all run up the views on that one. Okay, back to this story. I am so hyped for the romance to finally pop off. I think it's going to be so stinking cute. For anyone who's impatient AF and can't wait, the series is called Keeping My Boss on a Tight Leash, and I've covered up through chapter 23. Go binge it. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button. And ring that bell so you don't miss the next drop. Peace out and see you in the next one.